$10 billion savings for employers over 10 years. So the last piece to really tackle is property taxes. And, for the last 3 years, we've been addressing it in small ways, but we have been trying to address the issue on behalf of property taxpayers. But we really haven't got to the level that we need to. And so I think it is the expectations of Iowans that we get something done to address the property taxes, at least to bend the curve and start to look at flatlining and taking them eventually down just a little bit. So we're holding roundtables across the state. This is my third one. We have local government that are participating. We have city and county. We have hospitals. We have taxpayers at the table. We have farmers at the table. We have the hospitals. I think I said hospitals. School districts are also at the table as well. So just trying to get a good variety of people that are actually levying for taxes, that are paying taxes, and just having an open conversation about how we have to think differently on how we're delivering services to Iowans. It's what we did at the state level with the realignment efforts and then with DOGE to continue to look how we can be more efficient, more effective in delivering services to Iowans. And by just the realignment efforts that we put in place at the state level, we've been able to save Iowans $250 million in just 18 months. And there's more savings that we believe that we'll be able to take advantage of as we take the next step, maybe with some of the DOGE requirements, maybe with property tax reform, but really to encourage local and city governments to take a look at what they could do differently. How could we deliver services in a more effective, more efficient manner and start to bend the curve and bring those property taxpayers down. I was also, as part of the roundtable, excuse me, I'll get it out, I have representatives that are also participating in that. So our legislators are having the same opportunity to be a part of the discussion, hear what's the conversations that are taking place, and maybe some of the ideas that they're working on as well. So I've been really grateful to have the legislators be a part of this process as we hold these roundtables across the state.
Do you have any sense of how similar your legislation might look to what lawmakers advanced this past session?
So we're taking a look at everything. And I mean, we have been working on it all interim, and I think that's really important. It isn't something that you can just start, at the beginning of the year. So we've been really looking at what's been bills that have been presented in the last several legislative sessions. We're looking at a whole host of things. Really, everything is on the table. So that's a component of it, and then we'll work with the legislature. We're taking what we hear at these roundtables. We'll aggregate the information. If we start to see some consistency, some suggestions that they have, that'll be a part of what we'll take a look at when we're trying to write that last piece, put that piece of legislation together. And then, of course, it'll go through the legislative process. So Iowans and taxpayers and entities, local governments will have the opportunity to weigh in over the next legislative session as we're working it through the legislative process.
One of those issues that we saw at the end of last session was the eminent domain issue.
Yeah.
Are you hearing anything about that as you're going around the state? And do you have any thoughts on how you would address it next session?
Well, I'm not, because these are really focused on kind of property taxes and that, fiscal responsibility. We're doing well in the state of Iowa. I think the REC just met today, and the change that they made was due to the One Big Beautiful Bill and picking up, we conform, so that piece that wasn't in place the last time that they met, it takes that into account. But the number one priority has been property taxes. We hear that loud and clear everywhere we go. People are just frustrated to see their property taxes continue to increase. And so again, I said, I understand that, but you're going to have to take a look at how we deliver services differently. And if that's not something that they're willing to do, we're probably stuck with what we have right now. There's just so many ways that we can adjust what we're doing to start to bring those property taxes down. So we just have to keep an open mind. I want them to be a part of the discussion. I think that's really important. So I guess what I'm saying is most of my meetings have really just been focused on that and how we can take a look at providing those services. I think there will probably be something that will be, there will be some bills that will be put forward for this next legislative session. So we'll just wait and take a look at what those are when they're presented. But I'm sure something, there will be bills that will be presented to address that issue.
Mark Sandy released a report saying that I was on the brink of an economic recession. Do you have a response to that, or
Who
do you
said
believe
that?
that's true? Mark Sandy.
No, I don't believe that. We're going through some tough times, especially with agriculture. For the third year in a row, we've seen some really tough markets for our farmers. Also, Biden did absolutely nothing when it came to trade for 4 years, and we're paying a price of that. So we have a president, President Trump, that is stepping in and trying to address just the lack of even talking about trade for the last 4 years to make it fair. So I appreciate what he's doing. But we ended the last fiscal year with a $3.2 billion surplus. Our cash reserves are full, about $800 million, and we have over $4 billion in the taxpayer trust fund. That is put in place to help soften and ease into the tax cuts that we've been able to put in place. But we are actually putting more money in taxpayer pockets because when I took office, the individual income tax rate was nearly 9%. Today, it's 3.8%. So as we have been able to, and that's how we've been able to help families address, some of the factors that from the Biden administration, inflation, higher cost of living. We're starting to bring those numbers down, but with ag and the connection to manufacturing, we are seeing some softening, a little bit of softening in our economy, but we're strong. We're doing well. I think the revised numbers from the Bureau of Economic Analysis really underscores that fact. When they revised the 2024 numbers, they took us from last to 27th. And when we look at Q2, we actually are 18th in the country for GDP growth at about 3.7%. I think nationally it was 3.8. We recognize about 3.7% growth. So when you look at our balances, when you look at the revised Bureau of Economic Analysis reports that just dropped, I think we're going to be okay.
And I missed the first question, so forgive me if this was covered. Some of the Republican candidates that are running to be your successor have said that they believe they could put together a plan that would eventually phase out individual property taxes altogether. Do you see that as feasible?
Well, I'd like to see that plan on paper. That's not something that's going to happen overnight, but if they've got an idea to make that happen, you got to pay for these services one way or the other, and so there's just a cost to providing them. So if they, be interested in seeing what the plan is. But, hey, I respect the fact that they're talking about bringing property taxes down. And so from that perspective, we're all singing from the same page. We're just looking, all of us, I think, at some way that we can reduce the taxpayers, the tax burdens on hardworking Iowans. And so we're doing our part at the state level. We've given a lot of examples about how that could be done. We talked a lot about what different counties are doing to share services. When we were doing our research, we found that there were 24,500 MOUs already in the state. So you have a lot of local governments that are already sharing services, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to build out on some of those.
We've heard some concerns about water monitoring lately. Des Moines Water Works says that they're losing $300,000 in funding in the next few years, and now they're going to advocate at the state legislature next year. Do you have any comment on water monitoring, if you're a supporter of more funding for that?
Well, we've put, I think, like $700 million into water quality since I've been in office. It was the very first bill that I signed into law as the governor of the state of Iowa. So water quality has been a top issue of mine from the very beginning. We have a great Secretary of Agriculture who, through grant programs and conservation practices, is working with communities and farmers all across the state to do whatever we can to not only protect water quality, but also to drive soil health. They go hand in hand. Our land is a precious, valuable asset that we have. Our farmers feed and fuel the world, and we want to make sure that we're taking care of that natural resource. And believe me, our farmers are, because they want to pass that on to the next generation, and so it's a valuable asset for them as well. So we put a lot of money into it. If there's opportunities to adjust or look at some different grants that might be in place, I'm sure the legislature, I'm sure Secretary Ag and our office would be willing to take a look at some of those things. But I think we should get credit for the amount of money that we have put into a really important initiative. And sometimes, all you ever hear is we need more, and they never talk about what we've actually done to help drive conservation practices in the state. And we've been a proponent of that from the word go.
Last question.
Since the arrest of Ian Roberts, you signed your executive order last week, but will you be asking lawmakers to put that into code or go further to require private and public sector
well, that'll be their prerogative. I think that just applies to the state. I wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we could to make sure that we were putting the best vetting processes in place, and so that's why we stood up SAVE and E-Verify. I appreciate the administration. They offer both of those at no cost to the state, and so we were doing some of it with SAVE. We weren't just applying it across all agencies, and we'll be doing that now. But I would defer to them and see if that's something that they're interested in. I think the Senate has actually passed it a couple different years. So, that's a conversation that I'm sure will happen at the legislature this year, but that's a legislative decision. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Free cookies, folks. I don't know where they came from.
You just, I feel like you missed like